Perez had a weekend in Monaco that was an unmitigated disaster, and his title credentials are now in doubt. Sergio Perez's weekend in Monte Carlo was a complete nightmare as he lost control of his vehicle at St. Devote 8 minutes into the first qualifying round. With qualifying in Monaco proving to be the most crucial session of the season in terms of track position, it places him down in 20th place on the grid, the opposite to his teammate Max Verstappen's pole position. In Monaco, Sergio Perez was considered the favorite to win the race over Max Verstappen. On a circuit that prevented the RB19 from displaying its true class, other teams were predicted to be closer to Red Bull. Red Bull's checkered title as the king of street circuits has always been a bit of a stretch, but the top row was always expected to be filled with them. Yes, he wins more races on street circuits than anywhere else, but 5 of his 6 race victories throughout his Formula One career were at 3 different circuits, which isn't really enough to merit such a distinction. For instance, the Ferrari team gave him the victory in Monaco the previous year. He is, though, unquestionably closer to Verstappen on street circuits than on regular ones. Verstappen was nearly 0.2 of a second slower in the second session and over 6.600 slower in the third practice than he was in the first. But nothing is won during a practice session, and he was unquestionably the favorite to compete for pole position heading into the qualifying round. In the qualifying session with 11.5 minutes left, Perez crashed in his first flying lap. He lost control of the vehicle, skidded into the Tech Pro barrier at a high rate of speed, and completely damaged his RB19. Unbelievable day. I cannot believe what I've done. It just caught me by surprise, just getting that rear out of shape, especially really late into the corner. It's a way of how we were trying to get the lap time out of it, but I just went over the limit and I became a passenger. There was nothing else I could do because it was really late in the corner and I could not cut the corner or go out of the corner, said Perez. His mistake was not taken to well by his team as Helmut Marko, the team advisor, who had made positive declarations about Perez on his last races, had this to say about this. If you have a car like that, then you shouldn't be thrown out in Q1. That was a stupid mistake on his part. Maybe he was thinking too much about the World Championship. To make matters worse, Perez's first flying lap was the penultimate due to the tightness of the grid and the quick circuit evolution, leaving him with the nearly impossible job of salvaging a points finish on the Principality's winding streets. Yeah, it came around as a big surprise. Saying that isn't an excuse. I should have done better today, and all I can say, I'm very sorry to my team because you put so much energy, so much work preparing everything, and then you just disappointed today with myself. And I know that tomorrow it's going to be an impossible race. Christian Horner, the team principal, had this to say about the incident. I can only think he was distracted by the Alpine on the right-hand side because he just misjudged that first turn, and the circuit was only going to get faster and faster. He'll be kicking himself for that. I think he just went into fast. Maybe he was distracted. You can see the overspeed. He had a bit of a snap-on entry, and it wasn't a small tap. Starting the race from the 20th position and get points on the Monaco circuit is a mission impossible for most of the drivers, and for Sergio Perez proved to be just that. Even worse, he made a number of errors throughout the race, prompting many to declare it to be his worst race weekend ever. However, Verstappen, his teammate who is in the lead in the championship, finished over half a minute ahead of the field today, wrapping off a great session and earning several points to advance him closer to his 3rd championship victory. In reality, despite the difficult circumstances, he passed Perez twice. After one lap, Perez stopped to try to make the most of his time in the lead while running on hard tires and to rejoin the pack in the pursuit of points. Perez finally stopped 5 times, finished 2 laps behind his teammate, and was eliminated from the points due to many incidents of contact and traffic issues. He appeared unpredictable and dangerous on the track as a result of his eagerness to enter the points and attempt to salvage his title hopes. Midway through the race, at the Nouvelle Chicane, he collided with Lance Stroll, taking the Aston Martin driver's position by continuing straight instead of taking the bend. Then, as Lance attempted to recover the position that Sergio had wrongfully seized, he blocked the Canadian off and protested to the team about being shoved off. A few laps later, in an effort to pass Kevin Magnussen's Haas vehicle, he made the decision to rear-end it. He then came out and made a slight slide at the Nouveau Chicane. He also lost his position to Lance Stroll as a result of damaging his front wing, which required replacement at his next pit stop. All day long, those 3 drivers engaged in a struggle with one another, and it was clear that former colleagues Stroll and Perez were desperate to regain their rightful positions. At the end of the race, rain began to fall, and that didn't help the Mexican driver at all, changing the tires only so the team be prepared for making a perfect pit stop for Max Verstappen. Many people concluded that he won't push Max for the title this year based on his performance throughout the race and his failure to call. The last laps of qualifying were perhaps when the two drivers' differences were the most noticeable. On his penultimate lap, Max in Sector 3 was so near to losing control that a single gust of wind could have caused him to crash into the wall. But it never appeared to happen, as he barely missed every obstacle in the final 5 bends. On the other hand, Perez sought to push himself to the very limit and was immediately punished in the worst way imaginable. It is very frustrating. I knew that my mistake in qualifying was extremely costly. That is 25 points gone, so I'm very disappointed. But still, I have some hope. But I know I cannot afford another 0 in the championship, so I really hope I can be back to my normal level in Barcelona. In summarizing the Mexicans' weekend, Helmut Marko said, "I hope that today's mistakes are enough for the rest of the season." Perez crashed in qualifying for the second time. He did so in Australia. Perez was able to capitalize on many stops to move up to 6th place at Albert Park, though. The RB19 has demonstrated its ability to triumph with ease on a variety of circuit types. With the team finishing over 40 seconds ahead of Fernando Alonso, the Bahrain Grand Prix represented the largest win margin to date. Although tire graining from the high temperatures had a significant impact on this race, it served as a marker for the subsequent races in Jeddah. The automobile management caused this win margin to diminish. Red Bull anticipated that the technical issues may result in a double DNF, so both drivers were forced to work toward the conclusion. Australia's triple red-flagged race came to a close under the wheel of a safety car, and an outlier is. However, before the late stoppages, Verstappen briefly pulled ahead of Hamilton by 12 seconds. Red Bull decided to underfuel the cars in order to make them lighter and faster at the finish line because both drivers were in a league of their own up front. The RB19 has been the fastest car on race day by an average of half a second, giving Red Bull their best season start in the team's history. As things stand, Max appears to be on track to win a 3rd world championship, but some observers believe the sport's dominance is making it a touch dull. When a team and driver perform incredibly well and consistently win, it is a phenomenon that we have seen time and time again in the sport. The possibility of changing the championship to enable tighter racing at the front is being discussed. But in the end, Formula One has always been as much about the drivers as it has been about the vehicles and teams. The season still has 16 races left, but there is a lot of ground to cover without making a mistake. But at the present, that is all you need to accomplish to be a title contender in Formula One. Perez is aware that Max will perform nearly flawlessly, and he understands that he cannot afford to make any mistakes given how quickly the pursuing group is closing the distance on Red Bull. He has an opportunity right now to demonstrate his world champion potential. Otherwise, he will serve as Max's wingman for the remainder of the campaign. Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Thank you for watching the video, and please enjoy the racing.